Hi, I'm Schadt, CEO of DoubleHorn. Today I'm joined by Alan Knitowski, CEO of Phunware. Hey Alan, how are you?
Fantastic, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining. Before we jump into leadership and strategy, let's talk a little bit about your journey to taking Phunware public.
Sure.
It's my understanding you had two great exits with Cisco and Level 3, recently took Phunware public. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of an accident. I wasn't supposed to have had any of this happen, but after having been in the military, I was recruited accidentally to Silicon Valley. I was literally at a bar at the San Francisco airport. Someone came up, I think saw I had short hair, introduced himself, I don't even know what I was talking about, and asked me if I would miss my flight. I thought it was like a joke. And he said, I'm like, look, I can't afford to get back to Hawaii. I have nowhere to stay. Everything I said, I have no clothes to wear. And finally I said, don't worry about it. We'll cover it all. We'll get you a ticket. We have a hotel. We'll give you a rental car. And I thought it was a joke. And as fate would have it, I interviewed for about 7 hours telling people what a bad idea it was because I still had 2 years left in the military. And then by the time I got back to Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, I was given a job offer. So it all started from that. And then while I was there from August of '96 in Silicon Valley to 2001, it just seemed like you were supposed to start companies. So I was very lucky. My very first company, our co-founder and I put our house as collateral.
Did you really?
Yeah, to get our Dell equipment now here in Austin, which is funny. Nothing gets you out of bed more in the morning than you're going to lose your house, right? So we were fortunate. We dove into an area. We ended up setting up contingency business models, and that turned into 3 different companies. So the first one was doing voice over IP, a lot of what people see now with Vonage and RingCentral. We sold that to Cisco Systems. And then that provided a change financially, which allowed us to start investing and starting more companies.
Right.
And so my journey was really an accident. Neither of my parents went to college. I went to college only because I had an ROTC scholarship. So I went to the University of Miami for free, but I had to give 4 years of my life to the military. Yeah. And used that $100 a month to figure out how to budget money, and that turned out to be helpful for doing startups. But the journey's been crazy. I think if I wrote a script of my life's journey for Silicon Valley, the show, they would actually laugh and say, I don't even believe it. Yeah, they'll say, this is too far-fetched. But we were very fortunate. The first company, we did software. We sold it to Cisco. The second company, we then created a service provider. That was the one we sold to Level 3. We even had a third one in there that we sold last year. And that was really a networking equipment company to make the service provider work, which was an offshoot of the first one. So it was just one after another.
Fantastic. Parlay to parlay to parlay.
Right.
So take us, let's get to Phunware and then taking that public. Kind of talk about that.
Phunware exists largely because that wasn't supposed to exist. So
like everything you do.
Yeah, it's funny. When we started Phunware, you would think after you've had the good fortune to have really good people, wonderful management team, entrepreneurs and investors that follow you over and over and over again, you would think it'd be easy to raise a bunch of money. As it turned out, for Phunware, we decided we were going to do everything in the mobile ecosystem in one company. And Silicon Valley and all the people, despite our track record, said, you're trying to boil the ocean. You're going to be nothing to anyone because you're trying to be everything to everyone. And we basically said, no, we really believe that all of this stuff is going to go mobile first. Like now that seems really obvious, but we'll be 10 years old February 23rd. That's
what I was going to ask, because you were founded in '09, is that right? Okay.
And we watched the iPhone come out. We were saying, wow, is this going to change things? We saw how consumers behaved. And then we said, hey, there's 5 billion feature phones in the world. They're all going in the garbage can. We're all going to use a smartphone. It's going to be like having a computer. And what was really profound was that we believed, hey, if we could reach every human being on the planet, if we could actually have a Phunware ID for everyone that had a device touching a network, that actually used their favorite brands and their favorite applications, using our software, we could build something pretty special. And so all we did from when we started was we just thought, you're not going to want to have like 15 different relationships to do mobile applications. You're not going to want to have one that does content, one that does analytics, one that does marketing, one that does advertising, and so on. But that was how it was all funded, because in Silicon Valley, they wanted mobile to go the way of the web. They wanted everything that worked on the web to work on mobile, but it didn't play out that way. Apple had iOS. Then along came Google with Android, and that became 96% of the operating system for all the devices.
Yeah.
And so all we did is say, if we can build our audience through the eyes of the biggest companies on the planet, you know, the media and entertainment companies, the sports companies, and their audiences with their favorite show, their favorite network, their favorite brand, we thought we could build something pretty special. So Phunware, we set out with $20 million. That was our own money, and all the angels that followed us in the prior 3 companies. And then it took 5 years of our existence before we did an institutional round of financing.
Wow.
So unusually, we had a board of directors of 3 founders. We did whatever we thought was right, not what people thought should happen.
That's right.
And we said, as long as our customers pay us, we believe that that's the right path. And if they stop paying us, we'll change.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, they didn't stop paying us. And then we suddenly did a couple of institutional rounds. The first was about 30 million, Samsung, Cisco, WWE, and then some other venture capitalists. And then we did a $50 million raise, adding another strategic investor, a sovereign wealth fund, which I never would have even imagined meeting.
Yeah.
And so after that 100 million, we decided we wanted to, get to the public markets.
Now that you're here, what would be the biggest difference in running a public company versus the previous 3?
Yeah, so the biggest difference is more about what you can talk about in public. So we've always been super open, candid, and transparent. So I tell entrepreneurs, if you take money from anybody, even your mom, she's giving you $1 because she wants $5 or $10 back.
Right.
She doesn't love you that much. She wants some kind of money.
Right.
And so what we did is we sent out a Phunware flash report, literally every month for the entire duration of our corporate history. So we took people's money, we had our own, but then we would send out this update, and we would tell them everything. And we did that all the way up until last year when we filed with the SEC, and then you suddenly have to go silent. And it took 7 months and 2 days to get through the Securities and Exchange Commission. And I always told people, if I ever shut up, you'll know something interesting is happening because I never shut up.
Well, and we'll move on from this, but I think it's fascinating because you had 3 exits, right? Mm-hmm. And phenomenal job at maneuvering that landscape. But why go public? Why not exit like you did the previous 3?
So that's a very different thing about our approach, and Phunware was set up to be a massive public company from day one.
Okay.
I never wanted to sell Phunware.
Okay.
I always wanted to get to the public markets because I have the benefit now of having a lot of people on our exec staff that don't really have to work.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that pressure to feel like you need to exit, you have to exit. And it's a weird philosophy because here local in Austin, there's a very different set of viewpoints about exiting versus if you're in California or Asia, for instance.
Right.
So with like 350 different investors when we were private on that 100 million, you can imagine you upset a lot of people. Not because you're trying to, but you can't simultaneously say, be debt-free, be profitable, and scale profitably at a slower rate, and
right.
simultaneously say, don't worry about profit and scale, grow.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. I didn't realize that you actually, through your optics at the beginning, you wanted to go to the public, so you stayed the course. Yeah.
Yeah, although that was very unpopular with a lot of folks along the way.
I bet it was.
A lot of investors, hey, we've been doing this for 3 to 5 years, you should be exiting.
Yeah.
Why don't you just sell? What we wanted to do is to be a company not even that would get to $1 billion or 10 billion, but 100 billion in size. And you have to say, what do you have to do to become a $100 billion company?
Yeah.
And to us, we looked at it and said, you have to win a wave of computing. Yeah. So think about the late 80s. The two $100 billion companies were Apple and Microsoft.
That's right.
They won the PC era. After that was the client-server era. That was Oracle and Larry Ellison. After that, I would say, okay, the internet era. Well, that became who? Google.
Yeah.
Then you say the social era of computing. Facebook.
Yeah.
And what we wanted to do is win the mobile era of computing, especially with a focus on decentralized software distribution.
Okay, man, fascinating stuff. Talk to me about MaaS, is it multi-screen as a service?
Yeah, so you always think there's software as a service as a business model, which is what we do
That's
for
right.
our software licensing, kind of 1 to 5 year deals. We created first mobile as a service, and we evolved it to multi-screen as a service, largely because there wasn't just a smartphone. Remember, then we got tablets,
That's right.
wearables, in-car.
Okay.
Then we had kiosks, smart television. And so what we wanted to do, think of Phunware a lot like you would think of Amazon AWS or Google Cloud. The only difference is we focus on the Fortune 1000, specific to the infrastructure, software, and data that they need for all their mobile initiatives on iOS and Android. That's all we do. And what we do is we allow people that want to build their applications to license all the ingredients of our platform. So it'd be like I'm giving you sugar and water and vanilla and flour, and you go make amazing cake. And then we meet customers that say, you know what, I don't want to learn how to make cake, but I like to eat it. So can you give me vertical solutions that allow me to have things that I can just deploy, because we know we need these mobile applications. We know we need a patient experience for healthcare or a fan experience for sports. But they don't have the foggiest idea of how do you take all this stuff and piece it together. But they're very good at healthcare or running a professional sports team. And so what we've tried to do is make it really easy for people to engage however they want.
I want to transition to leadership. You've obviously figured that out along the way because you've been in the trenches and all over the place. How do you and your team approach, the strategy and leadership when you're growing these organizations? I mean, philosophically, how do you go about that?
Well, first thing philosophically is you have to say what's true north and what's the big idea. Ironically, when you see a lot of things get funded, they always talk about these big ideas that they want to go do, but most investors are actually terrified, right? Just pick one thing, focus on it, just do that. So we were kind of the opposite of that. Like when you say, I want to get a Phunware ID for every human being on the planet.
That's a lofty.
That's a pretty big goal.
That's a big goal.
Right. And if you say, I want to empower the world's population with a digital wallet and enable people to accept payment directly from brands, for everyone on the planet, so their personal data and information can be provided in return for payment. Those are almost terrifyingly big goals. So for leadership, for me, me and our COO, Randall Crowder, we're both ex-Army officers.
I read that.
We're both ex-Army Rangers. So, when you think about a corporate philosophy, we're like, look, we're going to get to eat, sleep, see our family when we're not traveling, and no one's shooting at us. So this can't really be that bad.
In the big scheme of things, this is a cakewalk.
So we try to get context. And so for us, like true north, when you think locally or even around the world, some of the most important things, like what's the true north for Amazon? It's if Jeff Bezos isn't there and all the Amazon execs are executing, what lens do they put the big idea through to make sure they don't screw up? And in his, they say three things. We're going to have more products than anyone in the world. We're going to have faster delivery than anyone in the world. And we're going to have better pricing than anyone in the world. So if he gets hit by a bus, which I don't hope doesn't happen, but if he's not there, all you have to do to execute against the Amazon vision when you work there is say more products, faster delivery, lower prices. Because for the next 50 years, are you ever going to say, give me less options, slower, and at higher prices?
No, probably not going to happen.
Of course not. So for Phunware, we say, what is the greatest mobile experience we can have on iOS and Android for anything you do on your device? And if I'm not around, I want anyone at Phunware to say, is this feature going to make that experience better? If we empower you to be in charge of yourself, is that going to be better or worse? And as long as you have that true north, that never changes, it makes everyone's ability to execute a big vision a lot easier. And leadership to me is all simple. Do what I do. Don't do what I say. If you demonstrate from the front, by example, at all times. I tell people this story when we were raising money privately. I took our CFO and we went to Taipei. We were trying to raise $1 million as part of a $6 million raise from a group in Taipei that had connections to Dell originally when they were setting up Dell and doing contract manufacturing. We met him through a local investor. They asked me a very interesting question. Alan, what's your philosophy of spending money? And I said, I never had that question before, but I said, I tell you what, I don't know if I have a good answer, but our CFO and I just flew coach from Austin, Texas to Taipei. We're staying down the street in a hotel, sharing a room, and that's my philosophy of spending money. And they said, great, here's $4.5 million. I said, but I just was trying to get one. Please, take $4.5 million. And that relationship with that group to this day has been fantastic. And as you scale, you have to say, one, do as I do, not as I say. And two, you have to teach people that every dime you're ever going to raise is the last dime you're ever going to see. So you don't show up and waste money.
Yeah.
You know, if you wouldn't waste money out of your own bank, why would you waste the
Someone
money
else's.
of your company?
Right.
And that's a discipline you install. But it's, you know, I don't really believe a lot in corporate culture. I believe a lot more in being open, candid, and transparent. And if you do things the right way that way, the culture sort of takes care of itself, I think.
Well, speaking of that, there's something that you guys call transforming digital human experience. And what inspired that? And how do you leverage that to grow the company?
Well, when you think about it, we're all human beings.
Oh.
Sadly, we're somewhat slaves to these devices. We go to sleep, we have them, we walk, we have them, we drive, we have them. That's kind of a weird thing. As I raised children, and now they've gotten older, they've grown up with broadband access and devices and instant access.
I fight it every night in my house with my youngsters. I mean,
anything you want, whenever you want,
on
wherever
demand.
you're at, right now.
That's right.
And if you don't like me, delete, and it's basically like bye-bye as a brand, and that's fatal.
Yeah.
You know, we started Phunware, only 2% of the world's internet traffic was mobile. Today, it's over 70%.
Yeah.
Of that, 90% are native mobile applications. So that transforming the human digital experience is about how do we make something fun, playful, and engaging, ironically addictive, and how do you optimize the interaction on a one-to-one basis between a brand and a consumer.
So it's really your purpose, I mean, right? I mean, that's a purpose-driven statement there.
Absolutely. It's that true north.
That's it.
The greatest mobile experience.
That's why I brought it up. It sounded like the true north, connecting the dots there. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's exactly true.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Let's talk about PhunCoin Ecosystem. I think this is just, I mean, this idea coupled with what we just talked about just seems mind-blowing. So walk the audience through PhunCoin and the genesis of PhunCoin and where you see it going.
So when we started working with corporations and over a 10-year window, you know, probably 3 years ago, a lot of the corporations started saying to us, like, okay, you control the most valuable piece of real estate we own, which is that branded mobile application on your device 24/7 that you have. And they said, help us connect to these consumers. How do we preserve the value of our brand? How do we not have our consumers get exploited? And how do we delight and excite them anywhere they're at without risking our brand looking foolish or our consumers feeling made to like they were exploited? So PhunCoin by Phunware was created because we now have over 2.5 billion Phunware IDs. Over 1 billion devices are active every month. That's kind of the size of a Facebook or Google. And I can't stand Facebook and Google. And I'm tired.
How do you really feel?
Yeah, I feel that it's pathetic that organizations that have that trust exploit human beings around the world. Yeah. We believe your identity,
too.
Absolutely. We believe your identity is a basic human right. You should own yourself. You have a right to your personal data and information. And it's fine if you want to opt in to engage with brands if they pay you. So PhunCoin was set up to be an SEC-compliant, SEC-regulated cryptocurrency that we could use to pay people for them voluntarily providing their personal data and information in exchange to opt in to audiences. So maybe I need a student loan for one of my kids in the fall to go to college. Maybe I want to refinance my house in the next 30 days. Well, why can't I tell Chase and Wells Fargo and others, hey, I'm right here. I want to refinance my house. If you want to give me an offer for me to potentially use your services, that's fine, but I want to be paid. So what we wanted to do globally at scale was to connect brands who we already work with to consumers with no untrustworthy intermediaries. Well, who are they? They are Facebook and Google. They lie to these companies. They tell them, oh, we're going to protect your brand, and they make them look foolish. They say, we're not going to do anything bad to your consumers, and they exploit them over and over. They are the product. So what we're going to do is help get our corporate customers connected to all the audiences they want to meet. In return, they are going to get compensated, and we're going to use blockchain to have an immutable ledger of every transaction. So the brand knows what happened, the consumer knows what happened. It could say, great, Alan was part of the audience of people that needed student loans, and he got a deal with Wells Fargo, and as a result, here's what he was paid. Yeah. And we can eliminate all of the lack of transparency that exists because you don't have any audit rights with Facebook, Google, Twitter, Snap. You, in fact, as a corporation, you voluntarily waive your ability to know what happened. And those black boxes we think shouldn't exist. So in my world, I say, do I believe that we're going to go from a world where we exploit people for money to a world where you get control of yourself? We can reward you for being you. We can get brands to connect without any of that danger in the middle. Well, that's $500 billion annually that's paid through media. And if we get them to point to us instead of them, and we enable this transparency, which has never existed, by the way.
Right.
The auditability, which has never existed.
Yeah.
And guess what? What happens? We think that we'll chip into their market share. We think that dollars that are being spent there will come to us. And by doing so, we think we can create tens of billions of dollars of market capitalization transfer from them to a group like us.
Or they might come knocking on your door trying to buy you. It might happen. Get you out of the way.
Well, we often hear those kind of things.
Yeah.
What we, though, want to do is we were able to comply with European mandates for GDPR in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we always said you're in charge of yourself.
Yeah.
You can have whatever experience you want on mobile because it's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't want to engage, don't.
Elaborate real quick. We have a few minutes left here, but I think it's interesting how you're using the word pay versus reward. Expand on that a little bit, the benefits of that.
Absolutely.
I think that piece of the model is very key here.
Right. So when you think about loyalty, you want to find ways to delight your audiences, and you want them to engage. You want to be able to manage. And ultimately, a brand wants to monetize, but there's got to be something in it for the consumer.
Right.
And the consumers to date haven't had that. Now, when you say loyalty versus rewards, what's the difference? It's not a novel idea to say I'm going to pay you for something. Right. When you earn points, when you use Visa and MasterCard, or you earn your airline, the difference is that's a liability on corporate balance sheets because they maintain those points and then you exchange them later. That would be what rewards are. What loyalty is me giving you custody of the compensation. It's off my books. There's not a liability for the brand. We can give you a PhunCoin. You take custody in your digital wallet. It's on your device, and you can do whatever you want.
Brilliant. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win for everybody. The brand doesn't have the financial liability. Right. The consumer gets to take custody. They can use it for goods and services. They could save it thinking it's going to go up in value.
That's right.
They could sell it. They can gift it. They can do whatever they want, which, God forbid, you should be able to do what you want with what you own.
Yeah, yeah. As you take this to market, and it, you know, I don't know what exact time frame, whether it's 6 months or a year, but have you thought about what the biggest obstacles may be at this particular point outside of regulatory? I mean, are there what would be a competitive obstacle in this particular case?
The biggest obstacle I call is FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah.
The way things have always been done. In fact, if you look at, we're going to be coming into a presidential election in 2020. Well, when all the media that's spent on elections around the United States are often pushed through media buyers that actually are rewarded by how much money they spend on Facebook and Google.
Yes.
That's not really a big motivation to say, let me go from a black box to full open transparency.
Yeah.
Because our contention is if you really knew what was going on at places like Facebook and Google, you actually would not spend there.
Well, if you just let them keep doing what they're doing, they're helping you. It seems like every day there's a new report out, or they stepped on themselves somehow.
Exactly, and I think that they have failed to keep the public's trust. Yeah. And we believe that if you believe, much like we went from circuit switching to packet, or you went from not being in the cloud to in the cloud, if you accept that we will be more transparent over time, that governments will demand it, brands will demand it, and consumers want it, if you believe that to be true, it's inevitable that this switch will happen. The only question is, what is the adoption rate? Yeah. And usually we'd say, well, this could take 10 or 20 years. That's true. But if I said 2 or 5 years ago, did you believe that Wall Street and institutions would adopt cannabis as being an acceptable investment?
Oh, I think 10 to 15 is unreasonable. I think you're half that.
Exactly.
Half that.
And we agree. And right now, what we're calling on brands around the world to do is join the PhunCoin Launch Alliance and say we should have brands who can connect directly with consumers, who are voluntarily opting in because they're getting compensated, and that shouldn't be controversial for anyone.
Right.
The only ones it's controversial for is people who created a business model to exploit everyone in the world and to take advantage of people for economic benefit that they don't share.
Fascinating. And we're going to stop there, but we're going to have you back for sure. It'll be good because we're going to fight the battle with you and be an advocate because this is great stuff. You're a fascinating guy, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate having a chance to come talk about Phunware.
Thank you for joining our Sea Level Chat. Look forward to seeing you next time.